Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. Going after another married man, Brooke. According to teasers for The Bold and the Beautiful, nobody should be surprised by her actions at this time. Since it appears that Brooke Logan is going to date another married man, it goes without saying that we are discussing her. For all the information you require, continue reading below. Being single isn't really a bad thing, is it? As she continues to pursue unattainable men, Brooke doesn't appear to believe it. Given that Ridge Forrester has already turned her down several times, Brooke appears to be planning to pursue Deacon Sharp, a new man in this made-up Los Angeles town. Nobody should be surprised that Deacon would accept Brooke's approaches because he has always had a soft place for her. In addition, Sheila's openness to the crazy Luna in her life is the reason he is having problems with her. If we've learned anything about Brooke over the years, it's that she just cannot function without a male. She will obviously move on to the next person who will give her any kind of attention if Ridge doesn't want her. It's possible that this will cause issues between her and Sheila, but Brooke isn't really concerned about that right now. Both rejection and loneliness are intolerable to her. What's up next for Deacon Sharp and Brooke Logan? Brooke believes that the risk of having another affair with Deacon is worthwhile. Additionally, they are already familiar with one another's needs and desires. Furthermore, Deacon is the ideal person to provide Brooke with the assistance she requires. Until Ridge reappears in her life and discovers what he has been missing, that is. It's a never-ending cycle. Will entitled Hope, who is assaulting her own mother, accept Deacon's dubious business deal? According to teasers on The Bold and Beautiful, Hope Logan continues to place blame on Brooke and Carter while denying any involvement in the demise of her fashion brand. Deacon's enigmatic offer might take advantage of her weakness. Deacon makes a mysterious offer that could change everything, but Hope denies to accept blame. As the fashion designer continues to live in denial about her involvement in the Hope for the Future scandal, Hope Logan's downward spiral continues. Deacon Sharp is prepared to intervene in the meantime with a proposal that might either save his daughter or put her in further danger. The game of Hope's blame intensifies. One thing becomes painfully obvious when Hope Logan, who lost her fashion brand, turns up at Il Giardino. She is still blaming everyone but herself. Deacon Sharp was worried about his daughter's mental health just before she arrived, telling his wife Sheila Carter Sharp that Hope has no purpose without her fashion line. Hope is intensifying her efforts to place the blame for all that has gone wrong on Carter Walton and her mother Brooke Logan rather than critically examining her own behavior that led to her demise. Her current state of mind, lost, resentful, and frantically looking for someone else to blame for her misfortunes, is reflected in her inability to take any responsibility for her career failure. The once principled and upbeat Hope that we previously knew appears to have entirely disappeared, to be replaced by someone who is unable to acknowledge the ways in which her own behavior has led to her current situation. Her protective demeanor betrays the extent to which she is finding it difficult to cope with the loss of her sense of self and purpose in her work. The mysterious proposal of Deacon. Deacon will provide Hope with an opportunity in tomorrow's episode that might lead her in a different route. Deacon made it clear that Hope's fashion line was her goal. Therefore it's possible that his suggestion will influence her next professional step. What will be included in this offer? Is it possible that Deacon wants Hope to create new outfits for the employees of Il Giardino? For a former fashion designer, that looks like a small-scale endeavor. Even more intriguing is the possibility that Deacon may introduce Hope to the same shadowy businessman who assisted him in purchasing the restaurant, connections that the spoilers imply weren't quite legal. The most intriguing possibility? In order to give Hope total creative control and remove her from the Forresters, Deacon might suggest that she start her own fashion brand. Although this would be just what Hope needs, we must question whether Deacon's dubious business associates would be involved and what conditions might be placed on such a chance. Bitter and vulnerable, a perilous combination. Hope is especially susceptible to whatever Deacon suggests because of her current emotional state. Even if Deacon has the best of intentions for his daughter, she is vulnerable to manipulation because she feels deceived by her mother and Carter. Hope may be open to accepting proposals that she would have previously turned down out of resentment and a desperate attempt to reclaim what she has lost. She is in a risky mentality where she is more concerned with assigning blame than making wise choices, since she won't accept any personal accountability for her career collapse. Will Hope agree to whatever Deacon suggests? If she does, will this be the start of her career comeback, or will it lead her in a more sinister direction? There is little doubt that Hope's future in Los Angeles may be negatively impacted by her next decision because she is in such a vulnerable and bitter state. A tempest of betrayal, ambition, and family conflict in The Bold and the Beautiful. Deacon boils, Liam slips in, and Ridge refuses. The Bold and the Beautiful throws its protagonists into a maelstrom of smoldering wrath, opportunistic moves, and unwavering resistance, setting the sun-drenched hallways of Los Angeles's elite on fire once more. Three men, Deacon Sharp, Liam Spencer, and Ridge Forrester, are at the center of this storm, each negotiating an emotional furnace that has the potential to shatter relationships, reinterpret allegiances, and alter the course of the Forrester-Logan dynasty. Ever the stoic patriarch, Ridge digs his heels into a refusal that could shatter his family's tenuous unity. Liam grabs an opportunity to regain prominence in the midst of chaos, and Deacon lets his pent-up rage run amok into dangerous action. A narrative powder keg that promises to destroy every connection is ignited by this trinity of conflict, which is laced with decades of past and new scars. Deacon boils, the unbridled fury of a father. The eternal outsider, Deacon Sharp, has reached his breaking point. His heart is always on the verge of disaster. Deacon is furious after his failed attempt to make amends with Hope Logan, which was overshadowed by her disdain for his involvement with Sheila Carter. The last straw occurs when Sheila, ever the manipulator, coerces him into arranging a covert gathering between Steffi Forrester's new couture line and shady financiers at Il Giardino. Steffi publicly denounces Deacon as a Sheila stooge after learning of his involvement in the plot, setting off a chain reaction of humiliation. She sneers, "You're just a washed-up con man," her words brimming with Forrester contempt. Deacon's response is impulsive and quick. He yells, "You've cost me my daughter, my dignity, enough," as he approaches Sheila late at night at the restaurant, banging his fists against the bar. With an unwavering smirk, Sheila responds, "You knew what I was when you let me back into your bed, Deacon." Their argument intensifies as Deacon throws a whiskey bottle against the wall, the glass breaking and echoing his broken mental state. Beneath the rage, though, is a father's desperate attempt to win Hope over, even as his decisions drive her farther away. Deacon's boiling point is defined by this dichotomy, this dance between destruction and redemption, which prepares the audience for a bold move that might either save his legacy or bring him to ruin. Liam enters, the opportunistic gambit of the waffler. Ever the opportunist in both love and battle, Liam Spencer spots a gap in the confusion. With Steffi preoccupied with business battle and Hope suffering from Deacon's collapse, Liam enters the void with the dexterity of a guy who has made a living by taking advantage of crises. In addition to gently undercutting Thomas Forrester, whose hold on Hope's emotional and professional life has long irritated him, his play aims to restore Hope's waning trust. Liam coincidentally stops Hope in the middle of her frantic outburst at Il Giardino following a violent phone chat with Steffi. He whispers, "You don't have to face this alone," evoking the sincere bravery that first captured her affection. Hope, alone and deceived by Deacon, leans into his arms, her willpower disintegrating. His timing couldn't be more perfect. Liam, meanwhile, revives memories of Beth's abduction and sows doubts about Thomas's sanity. Hope, he has a history of obsession. "Can you take that chance once more?" He mumbles, his words a masterful act of deceit disguised as worry. However, Liam's schemes go beyond romance. He approaches Bill at Spencer Publications about a hostile takeover of Forrester's weak couture sector, presenting it to Steffi as a strategic rescue. He makes the argument that we'd be saving them from themselves, but his real goal, to topple Ridge and win back his father's approval, is hardly disguised. The dichotomy at its heart is revealed by Liam's duality as the corporate scheming jerk and the loving ex-husband, a man who is constantly caught between self-interest and heroism, slipping into weaknesses that only he can take advantage of. Ridge refuses, the unwavering position of the patriarch. The cornerstone of the Forrester empire, Ridge Forrester, is faced with a decision that puts his devotion to his family and legacy to the test. Taylor's enduring influence led Steffi to demand that Brooke Logan leave Hope for the future, which clashes with Brooke's fervent attempt to regain her creative crown. Ridge's refusal to terminate Brooke sparks a heated argument during a tense board meeting. He slams his palm on the table and thunders, "Logan and Forrester's collaboration was the foundation of this company. I refuse to allow small grievances to destroy that." But Ridge's disobedience goes beyond simple charity. His judgment is clouded by his unresolved affections for Brooke, which were rekindled by her recent plea for reconciliation while wearing lingerie. Brooke confronts him in private, saying, "You're protecting me because you still love me. Admit it." Ridge's quiet, which is a mixture of regret and want, says a lot. He finds himself in a tight spot as a result of Taylor's ultimatum. Despite being grounded in business practicality, his unwillingness to compromise runs the risk of upsetting Steffi and Thomas, who see Brooke as a disruptive force. Ridge's position reflects the uncompromising values of his father, Eric, but at a high price. As Liam's cunning and Deacon's mayhem threaten Forrester's stability, Ridge's defiance serves as a safeguard against entropy, a decision that might preserve the business but destroy the family. These arcs collide, setting off a chain of violent encounters. Desperate to make amends, Deacon tells Steffi about Sheila's illicit activities, only to be caught off guard when Liam fabricates the story to paint him as the mastermind. Hope, torn between Liam's cunning charm and Deacon's cries for forgiveness, breaks down in tears and tells Brooke, "I don't know who to trust." A reflection of her mother's previous struggles. Ridge's denial, on the other hand, causes a split. With Thomas's support, Steffi threatens to destroy Forrester Creations by introducing a competing line that sets mother against daughter against one another. Channeling her inner Stephanie, Brooke responds by supporting Bill Spencer's vehement declaration, "I'll give them a war if they want one." Resonating in the design studio. Brooke Logan begs once more. Is there no respect for Brooke Logan? Does Brooke Logan value herself at all, according to spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful? When Brooke and Taylor Hayes made the decision to cut ties with Ridge Forrester after decades of him vacillating between them, we concluded she did. But within months, she was back pleading with Ridge. She begged Ridge to take her back only last week, but he reluctantly went with Taylor as he had already committed to her. She is now requesting a favor in front of Ridge once more. Brooke isn't prepared to beg for Ridge's affection once more, surely. Brooke might be batting for Hope Logan. Ridge might be able to persuade Steffi Forrester Finnegan to change her mind about Hope for the future. It was beginning to turn a profit again, so it's a business issue, isn't it? The bottom line of Forrester Creations shouldn't be affected by Steffi's personal feelings, right? The anger and torture of Steffi Forrester. Given that Steffi is now again directing people and addressing anyone who irritates her in any way, Brooke might want to ask her that question. She is returning to Bill Spencer's home this time to confront him about Liam Spencer. Bill is firing his own son? For years, Liam has put in a lot of effort at Spencer Publications. And because Liam was upset with Bill for bringing a serial killer into his house? Steffi thinks that is completely ridiculous. She has always been fiercely protective of Liam, but now that he has tampered with him, Bill has gone too far. Steffi is more upset with Bill than ever because of what he did to Luna Nozawa and what he did to his own son. What justification will Bill offer his ex-lover and ex-daughter-in-law? Maybe he'll advise her to simply leave his place once more. Something completely crazy is about to happen with Brooke Logan. Brooke Logan never sat quietly while life went by. Instead, she was the type of woman who marched into the storm with her heart open, mascara flawless, heels first, and even when it broke. And tonight, as the glittering lights of Los Angeles glisten through her Bel Air estate's floor-to-ceiling windows, Brooke was about to do something that, even by her own standards, was hazardous, reckless, completely insane, and perhaps even brilliant. Her thoughts were more rapid than the wind blowing through the canyons as she paced the length of her bedroom, her silk robe billowing behind her like the trailing end of a secret. Everything was too loud in her mind, Steffi's arrogant assessment disguised as care, Hope's subdued disappointment over the most recent scandal, and Ridge's voice imploring her to give him space. There was Deacon after that. Deacon, you are a kind, foolish, and impetuous person. 3 nights ago, you showed up at her door with eyes full of that complex mixture of regret and want, uttering her name as if it were both a blessing and a curse. She had dismissed him. He was always sent away by her. She hadn't slept since, though. Not at all. As she lay there in the dark, listening to her own heartbeat, she asked herself the question she had been avoiding all her life: what if I told her to hell with it all this time? As she approached her vanity, she gazed into the glass as though it had the answers rather than the weary eyes of a lady who had experienced more love, loss, and rekindlement than she could count. However, beneath the weariness, there was a glimmer of something else, perhaps rebellion, or simply the unadulterated pain of longing for something tangible. Nor Ridge's vacuous pledges, nor the tradition of being paired against Taylor in a never-ending high school rivalry decked out in expensive dresses and champagne toasts. Brooke had had enough of reliving the same cycle of reunion and heartbreak. She desired more. Or different, at any rate. With her thumb hanging over the screen, she reached for her phone. She ought not to. She ought not to. While Steffi glares at her and Ridge avoids eye contact as if he didn't just say he needed time to think, she should go to bed, wake up in the morning, go to work at Forrester, and smile politely. Instead, she unlocked her messages. Deacon's final statement, "I meant what I said," was still there. "If you desire, I would permanently leave." She gazed at it for a full minute before typing, "Are you home? But if you ever change your mind, you know where to find me." She was already shedding her robe as soon as she texted it, moving with a frenzied intensity she hadn't experienced since she was a college emerging girl who wasn't worried about what other people thought. Before common reason could pull the wheel away from her instinct, she hurriedly put on jeans, a silk shirt, heels, and no coat, and then snatched up her car keys. The city had an eerie silence, as if it were waiting for something to happen, and it was late, past midnight. Like a crazy woman, Brooke drove quickly with her windows down and her hair blowing in the breeze. Perhaps she was. Perhaps this was insane. However, Brooke began to feel alive halfway between the house she left behind and the gritty little neighborhood Deacon had moved into, the one she had accused him of being beneath him in a fit of old snobbery. Not pleased. Not in harmony. But at last, woke. Conscious of her own strength, autonomy, and desires. She also desired Deacon. Not that he was secure. Not that he was flawless. However, he was honest in a manner that Ridge had never been. Because Deacon looked at her as if he meant it when he said she was beautiful, rather than comparing it to Taylor's calmness or some idealized recollection of their early years. She didn't hesitate as she pulled up in front of his residence, a little, unassuming cottage hidden behind a tire shop and a booze store. To let him know she was there, she didn't even text him. She simply walked confidently to the door, and knocked 3 times. Time seemed to bend about them as he opened it, shirtless, bleary-eyed, and obviously unprepared for her. "Brooke?" His voice was scratchy from sleep as he spoke. "Is everything all right?" She kissed him instead of responding. Hard. Fierce. It seemed as though she was attempting to destroy every falsehood, poor choice, each instance in which she had put caution before passion. And the Deacon, may God bless him, didn't inquire. He returned her kiss, drew her in, and closed the door with one hand while clutching her like she was a priceless object. Clothes strewn all over the floor like excuses she didn't have to offer. Brooke came to the realization that she wasn't sorry somewhere in the midst of all of this craziness, chemistry, and full-throttle recklessness. Not even by a small amount. She laughed when it was all done and she was covered with a sheet, gazing up at the ceiling while Deacon slept next to her, one hand on her hip as if he was still in shock that she was real. Wild, soft, and unbelieving. Because this was crazy. She was crazy. For what had she just abandoned her entire life? A night of ancient flames, heat, and poor choices? Or perhaps, just possibly, the beginning of something she had previously been too afraid to accept. When she looked at him closely, she noticed more than simply the same old error she kept making. Before she understood what to do with love like that, she saw a guy who had struggled to be in his daughter's life, who had fought his way back from the bottom, and who had truly loved her. Perhaps this was a fleeting moment. By morning, it might all blow up in her face. But for the time being? Brooke Logan has had enough of being cautious. She was over being the person that others discussed in private, analyzing her past and passing judgment on her decisions. She had endured too many betrayals and survived too much to continually apologize for seeking someone, that would make her feel recognized. And let it burn if it caused the world to burn around her. She was able to handle the heat. She had always done so. Let them talk, she muttered to herself as she closed her eyes and felt the warmth of Deacon's breath against her skin. Allow them to yell. Because she felt as though she was no longer fleeing for the first time in a long time, she said, let them come for me. She wasn't pursuing Ridge, protecting herself from the Forresters, or posing as someone she wasn't merely to maintain harmony. She was making the decision to choose herself, turmoil, and yes, Deacon. And it was so satisfying. Completely insane. But it's really, really good. Hope Logan stood in the center of her new design studio, the quiet hum of sewing machines and the distant sound of city traffic barely registering in her ears. Her heart was heavy, burdened by the betrayal she never thought she'd experience from the two people she trusted the most, her mother, Brooke Logan, and Carter Walton, the man who had supported her legally and professionally since the inception of her new company. It wasn't just disappointment that gripped her, it was heartbreak. After months of building her brand, of stepping out on her own and trying to redefine her identity away from Forrester Creations, Hope had discovered that Brooke and Carter had made a private deal with Ridge and Steffi to sell the rights of Hope for the future back to Forrester behind her back. It wasn't just a business transaction, it was a betrayal of her vision, her independence, and most painfully, her trust. She sat down at her desk, the documents still spread in front of her, each page a reminder of what had happened. Her eyes scanned the signatures, Brooke Logan, Carter Walton, Ridge Forrester, and Steffi Forrester. Her name was conspicuously absent, and that absence stung like a wound. When Carter walked into her office earlier that day, trying to explain, all she could do was stare at him, the words caught somewhere between fury and disbelief. You went behind my back, she had said, her voice trembling not from weakness but from suppressed emotion. You sold out everything I've worked for. Everything I've dreamed of. Carter's face had fallen. Hope, I never wanted to hurt you. Brooke and I thought this would protect you, give you some stability. Forrester has the infrastructure, the resources too. Hope had held up her hand. No. Don't talk to me about stability. Don't talk to me about protection. I left Forrester because I wanted something of my own. And now, without even a conversation, you've handed it all back to them? How could you? She had walked away from him then, retreating into the silence of her studio, trying to gather her thoughts. Now, hours later, the pain was sharper. Because it wasn't just Carter, it was her mother too. Brooke, who had watched her daughter struggle, rise, and claim her independence. Brooke, who had once said she was proud of Hope for forging her own path. Brooke, who now seemed more concerned with keeping the Logan name attached to Forrester prestige than supporting her daughter's autonomy. Hope's phone buzzed. A message from Brooke, we need to talk. Please don't shut me out. She stared at the screen, her chest tightening. That was rich, don't shut me out? Hadn't Brooke shut her out when she made that deal? Hadn't she decided, without consulting Hope, what was best for her? Hope slammed the phone down and stood, pacing the room. Her thoughts were a whirlwind, her emotions raw and tangled. Later that evening, Brooke arrived at the studio. Hope didn't greet her, she didn't offer a hug or even a seat. Instead, she turned to face her mother with a cold, unreadable expression. Why? Hope asked quietly. Why did you do it? Brooke stepped forward hesitantly. Honey, I didn't mean for it to happen like this. Ridge and Steffi came to me with the idea, and Carter thought it would be a smart move. We all thought we were helping. Helping? Hope's voice cracked. Helping who? Yourself? The Forrester bottom line? Because it sure as hell wasn't me. Brooke's eyes welled with tears. Sweetheart, I just didn't want to see you struggle. Starting a company is hard, and you were doing so much on your own. I thought if we brought hope for the future back into the fold, you'd have support, security. Control, Hope snapped. You wanted control. You couldn't stand that I was doing it without you, without Forrester. You couldn't handle the idea that I might succeed on my own terms. Brooke took a breath, clearly hurt. That's not true. I love you. I'm proud of you. Hope shook her head, the pain in her chest too much to bear. Then why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you even give me the decency of a phone call before you handed over my brand like it was yours to give? There was silence between them, thick and suffocating. Brooke had no answer that could mend what had been broken. Hope turned away, tears finally streaming down her face. You've always said you wanted me to be strong, to stand on my own 2 feet. And the moment I do, you knock the ground out from under me. I'm done being your project, your puppet. I'm not going back to Forrester. I'll start again if I have to, but I'm doing it my way. Without you. Brooke reached out, but Hope stepped back. Please don't, she whispered. I need space. I need time. Carter called again that night. Hope didn't answer. She sat in her studio, alone with her thoughts, replaying every moment of the last few weeks. The moments where she had trusted Carter implicitly, shared her dreams and strategy, and led him into the most vulnerable parts of her business. And now, that trust felt like a cruel joke. The man who once championed her autonomy had now been part of the very machine that stripped it away. Hope knew rebuilding would be hard. The legal complications would take time, and she'd likely have to create a new brand from scratch. But if nothing else, she had clarity. She knew who she was. She knew what she stood for. And as painful as the betrayal was, it reminded her that her voice mattered, that her vision was worth protecting, even if it meant standing alone. She looked at the empty wall behind her desk, then stood and grabbed a marker. With bold strokes, she wrote on it, New Hope. It wasn't just a phrase. It was a promise. She was no longer a girl trying to prove herself in the shadow of others. She was a woman who had been burned by the people closest to her, and who would rise stronger because of it. Hope Logan would rebuild, rebrand, and reclaim everything that had been taken from her, not just in business, but in trust and in spirit. Because from this moment on, she wasn't building for anyone else's legacy. She was building her own.